And with a flick of the button, he was live. So, first of all, good evening, everyone, as you join the stream in the coming seconds. So, first of all, a warm welcome to you. Thanks for being here Monday night at 8 o'clock. Yes, I can see the streams are beginning to kick in. So as you join, just want to say that what I'd like you to do is, if you're watching this on YouTube, do make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get notifications of all of these. And if you can share it as well, that's equally good. And ditto on Facebook. So if you can do those things, guys, that would be interesting and helpful. Other things you can do is, just so that you know, I now stream to Rumble, I stream to Dailymotion, and I stream to BitChute. So because YouTube's not that friendly if you want to speak certain things, let's say. So anyway, you can find exclusive content on those channels. So like Simon says, he knows about Rumble. Anyway, you can find me on those different platforms. So first of all, so that's all that bit done. The other bit to do is, it's getting near Christmas. Now, we'll be having a Christmas special next week for definite. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But ahead of Christmas, just please make sure that if you've got a few pennies in your pocket and you want to throw it in the Alt News Media tip hat, do so. In fact, I'll just do that actually, so that you know how to do that, because I mean, I know you're just dying to hear this bit. If you do support free speech, and in particular my right to exercise it, then this is what you need to do. Go to altnewsmedia.net/donate. It's the best thing you can do with your money. So make sure you do that. Right. Without any further ado, I wish I could do a drum roll effect. But anyway, let me introduce my always special guest on a Monday. It's Rebecca Butler. Good evening, Rebecca.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. As you can see, I'm back in the UK now. So fingers crossed the signal will be better.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, it looks really good. It's, your signal was never actually that bad, so but it's very decent tonight. So hey, listen, we got lots of stuff to talk about, Rebecca, and we've only got about an hour to talk about it. Now, I wanted to hit you with probably the biggest story of the day, and that is that Jessie is apparently going to leave Little Mix. Now, this came as a massive blow to me, and possibly you as well. I just wondered what your views on that might be.
Well, Jessie, obviously she's one of the core members of Little Mix, and I had noticed she hadn't been appearing with the band for a little while now. And funnily enough, now you might think I'm not a fan of Little Mix, and you might have thought you were going to take the mickey out of me, but only last night I had to Google to work out where she was. And apparently she's got some health problems. So I hope they're not.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm a bit sad. She's very young to be having health problems. So yeah, I'm a bit sad about that.
Yeah. Well, the other revelation that I'm not sure if everyone in the stream knows is that Rebecca Butler, a big Gary Barlow fan as well, from what I saw on your Twitter feed recently.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen him live too many times for my own sanity and to take that. So yes, look, little known facts about me. I'm completely down with the kids. Okay, well, maybe not with Gary Barlow, but I know who Little Mix is. I watch Love Island. I watch Married at First Sight Australia.
I saw that. Yeah.
Trash TV is me. And, I watch football. I mean, surely I'm the perfect wife for somebody out there. Come on.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that. Love at first sight. Is that it?
Married at First Sight.
Married at First Sight. Yeah, I never heard of that one. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, there's not.
The Australian version is they're not sure whether they're on Love Island, Celebrity something or the other, or Married at First Sight. They get the whole thing confused up. If you haven't watched it, people on the stream, Jed, I know you're going in there for this. Married at First Sight Australia. It is
top
viewing.
Top tip. Now listen, Rebecca, we're going to move on to our main topics for the night. But just ahead of that, there was one other story. This is not another Little Mix story, but there was this news that that was, I just sort of see hitting the screens just before we came on. I'm just going to flip it up and tell me what you think. So you probably see that, yes, London calling. London's going to enter tier 3 from Wednesday, first thing Wednesday. So our capital city going into tier 3. Just quickly, what's your thoughts on that?
3,000 COVID patients in hospital in London. That's a lot. Cases have been rising, no matter how you measure them and whatever disinterest you have in the accuracy of them. Look at it in relative terms. Relatively, case numbers have gone up. Case numbers go up, inevitably hospitalization goes up, and then inevitably deaths will result. So it's terrible thing. Many people will lose their jobs over this, and it's just devastating. I can't tell you how sad I am, but I'm afraid that it's happened to everybody. London isn't a special case just because all the politicians go to their trendy little bistros there. It's not a special place. Viruses don't discriminate, and Liverpool did a really good job. They really did well. So, Leicester's been in lockdown forever. I mean, I think the beginning of September. So, I just want people to stop personally feeling responsible for it, because I don't think they are. It's the time of year. We're a little bit more indoors when we're packed together with people now. We shouldn't take the blame for this, and Londoners aren't to blame. People from Leicester aren't to blame. It's just a pandemic, and that's the end of it. It's terribly sad.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, as somebody's pointed out here, the Midlands have been in tier 3, the northeast and the northwest. I don't see why London has to be different from anywhere else, or any more special or any less special. Obviously, it's the capital city, so I guess the economic consequences of it potentially might be greater. I don't know, maybe not, but I've seen anyway. Sadiq Khan was lobbying to shut the schools instantly, keep them closed into January, whatever. So mad stuff. But then he's a lunatic, as we both know.
The whole point of the current policy is about deciding which sectors have to stay open and which they can sacrifice, which is really hard if you're in hospitality. But I think when you look at society as a balanced whole, what is more important, you going down to the pub or children going to school? And I'm sure it's children going to school. And I'm afraid it's one or the other. It's not both, particularly not in the winter. So, as I say, David, time and time again, the numbers I look at are not deaths. I look at hospitalization numbers. 3,000 people in hospital is a hell of a lot, because they can't be nursed with non-COVID patients. That is structurally, that's a big number. It really is.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens now when London does go into lockdown. But I think that coincides with, when does Parliament break up for Christmas?
Well, they're not, are they? Because they have to sit because of potential deal. They're going to have
to talk about
it. Yeah. So potentially they're. I think they normally break up sort of university term times, and I don't think they are. They're being forced to sit through. So it'll all be on Zoom. It doesn't matter. They need to scrutinise the.
Oh yeah, well, but absolutely. Well, look, that's the first subject we wanted to talk about, folks. So Rebecca and we wanted to chat about the whole kind of the interminable, Rebecca, Brexit trade talks. But we do need to talk about that a little bit. And then, and this is probably the greater topic for tonight, we want to talk about China a little bit, because let's be honest, a lot of stuff relating to China has not got the focus and attention that it needs, and it's important, folks. So I hope you'll stick with us, because I know Rebecca and I both have reviews on China, just in terms of the last 12 months and maybe a wee bit more broadly than that. So without further ado, Rebecca, I've got a few bits to bring up on the Brexit scenario. So you probably saw this story that The UK after the deadline. In fact, you recall when we were talking about this one, we said, "Wait, we might need to talk about this on Monday night because the deadline was Sunday, so the deal would be done." It's not been done, has it?
I see this as a failure of statecraft, the fact that they haven't got this done. It's been quite a difficult few days for me on Twitter and Facebook because I put up a post about fishing. Now, if I could just go into a tiny incy-wincy bit of detail. This time last year, Boris Johnson had just been elected on a whopping great mandate to get that withdrawal deal through Parliament. And this was the oven-ready deal. So the deal had within it, or as a codicil to it, the political declaration. And the political declaration sets out the intentions of the party in terms of what they're going to do after Brexit. And the big thing after Brexit, at the end of January this year, was to try and get a trade deal, plus alignment on so many other things like judicial cooperation, security, Euratom, so important with our isotopes for cancer treatment. They've got to be able to pass freely across the borders in Europe. Visas, pet passports, just numerous medicines agencies, you name it, it had to be agreed in the past few months. So a lot of the time has been spent on that. But it's really, really, really critical point here. In the political declaration, two things were stated. One, that fishing is not something upon which the EU can invoke the Northern Ireland Brexit backstop. So they can't force Northern Ireland into the customs union with the Republic of Ireland over a disagreement on fishing. The other thing was that fishing had to be agreed first. So it had to be kept separate from the rest of the single market tariff quota discussion. It didn't happen in July. Now, why not? I think they will say COVID intervened. But what they did was they kicked it down the road. And whoever in the UK team allowed that kicking down the road has now led to a situation where the bartering positions are fish, level playing field. This is the reality with the fish. Let's not deceive ourselves over fish. Let's talk about it in its truest terms. Look at what Macron's doing. Look at which fishermen he's protecting. And by de facto, he's also protecting our Cornish fishermen here. We can't fall into a no deal over fish. So what I said was, we've got to compromise. We cannot compromise level playing field ever. We've got to compromise on fish. And by compromise, I mean glide path is shallower, not we give them everything, but we maybe give them an extra 2 or 3 years in order to decommission their fleet while we recommission and build our own infrastructure, which we don't have. But the torrent of abuse I've received on Twitter and Facebook for daring to suggest that we ought to really look at what are the most important red lines, look at the reality that fish should never, ever, ever be bartered against anything else, and it now is. How do we strike a deal? And massively unpopular post, as you can imagine, because the reality is we can never, ever, ever have level playing field ratchet clauses. We just cannot have them.
Well, Rebecca, one of the things I like most about you is that you are very principled and courageous in the arguments that you put. And whilst I don't necessarily always agree with everything that you say, I do agree with your absolute right to say those things. And sometimes, it does take courage to go against the popular vein, and you know this, and I've spent my whole life going against it, and political world that is, and it's the easy path is not necessarily the right path, and as you say, I mean, we are careening towards this. It looks to me like 31st of December, almost, or very close. It'll certainly, I reckon, be the other side of Christmas. And we've, it is clearly in the best interest of the European Union and the United Kingdom to come to a sensible arrangement. No deal has serious implications. It just does, folks. I have in some circumstances advocated it, but at this point, I kind of feel that there was merit in what you were saying. There were certainly elements in what you were saying which seemed kind of sensible to me. But I noticed that, the flak levels were going off all around you. And I don't think that was the case, because actually, if there's one topic that you actually know about, Rebecca, well, you will know about other topics as well, but this is an area where you're pretty familiar with the topic, aren't you? Fishing.
Very familiar. I mean, I wrote a dissertation on the damn CFP, so I've been criticising it for years. And the thing is that, as your viewers know, I am an absolute rigid critic of politicians. They always fall short for me. They never know the law. They're meant to be legislators. And I'm afraid some of our MEPs who may have hung their coats on the fishing hook are deeply ignorant of things like what the political declaration says, or what the Withdrawal Act says, or what the actual common fisheries policy says. And when I've said to them, well, hang on a minute, what about the hundreds of thousands of tons fish we export to European countries? And France is our biggest market. Our exporters can't afford tariffs. So you're saying you want a no deal in order to restrict the vessels in the channel to the midway point. But hang on a minute, we're a net exporter of some of the species. So you're actually slapping tariffs on your own people. Why would you do that? We haven't got, with some fleets, I mean, this is the thing with fish. You have shellfish, you have certain species, you have scallops, you have the haddock, mackerel, hake, cod, salmon. Biggest export is salmon. What are they going to say while their fishing mates in Lowestoft are saying, oh, we don't care about tariffs, we're all right? Well, you won't be all right, love. You will not be all right. And so, I mean, fishing is totemic to Brexit, but be rational. Don't be emotional about this argument. Just think, hang on a minute. And as I view it, it's like a divorce, right? So, I'm representing the husband here as the UK. The wife is the EU, making demand after demand after demand. And in her demands, she wants to see the dog more often than she wants to see the children. But she also wants a lifetime maintenance order for £3,000 a month, right? Classic application by a wife in a divorce. And I say to the husband, under no circumstances are you to agree to a lifetime maintenance order to pay her £3,000 a month. No, you're not going to do that. That's the level playing field. That's what we're doing now. The lifetime massive implication agreement, as opposed to the pet dog, which in terms of the GDP contribution, I'm not trivializing fish. I'm just saying that the husband is quite emotionally attached to the dog. It's his dog, but she's demanding it because she knows it's going to piss him off. So he says, under no circumstances is she having the dog. And I'm saying, hang on a minute, let her have the dog so you don't have the spousal maintenance order for life. That is the stark difference between what we're talking about here on this Brexit deal. We cannot have a level playing field ratchet. It's just the worst thing we could ever agree to. It would be awful. It's not Brexit.
No, it's not, and I agree, Rebecca. And this is where I completely agree with you. The level playing field, it's really not up for negotiation. From 1st of January, the UK will determine its standards, set its rules, decide what it wants to do with issues like state aid. We do not want to be in any. We don't want any link to the European Union. It may be in some areas, as I think has been said, we might choose to have higher standards. We might choose to have somewhat different in other areas. But that's for the point about Brexit is the British people will decide those things, and it's whatever we want as a people to have them. So there can be no negotiation on that. The thing about fishing that struck me, Rebecca, was the ferocity of the response that you got from what your tweet and your videos were saying, insofar as, with the best will in the world, fishing is a very tiny percent of the UK GDP. It's less than 1%, isn't it? I think it's tiny.
Well, about 11,000 people in fishing, and GDP. It's so tiny. It is so tiny, and in the scope of the things that matter, one person who shall remain nameless on this stream was saying, I'm not interested in farming and the car manufacturers and the barley farmers and the Welsh sheep farmers. I couldn't give a damn. Fishing is more important. No, it's not. Not to the Welsh sheep farmer, it's not.
No.
Absolutely not. Not to the car manufacturing employees. Everybody's important. One isn't more important than the other. And actually, just because you've been an MEP, you know what? You don't have a moral monopoly on being able to say what does and doesn't happen to fish. And by the way, just because I don't happen to live and work as a fishwife also doesn't mean that I don't have an expertise to comment on it. So again, this is, why are they turning on their own people? Why are they turning on their own tribe? When all I'm saying is we look at the bigger picture and a deal has got to be done. Of course.
I think you said this several weeks ago, Rebecca, that fishing, it's a totemic issue, though. It is totemic. So it has to be handled carefully. But if we believe some of the rumors and there's always rumors about, folks, one of the rumors is that in the next number of days, there may be movement around the EU accepting the level playing field or accepting that we'll do what we want. And in exchange for the UK making some arrangements around fishing, which is kind of what you were saying. And it'll be very ironic. Now, I mean, obviously, Boris probably finds himself in a tricky position because he would be aware of the fact that people like Nigel Farage and stuff will come after him on that if there's seen to be a compromise. But by the same token, just for the UK to crash out of the EU is also going to be very difficult for the UK. So damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, I mean, I just need to address the point that Jed's brought up, because he says, Rebecca, you're missing the point if fishing is worth nothing to the UK. The EU makes 650 million euros every year. That could be 650 million UK pounds. No, it couldn't. No, it couldn't. At most, it would be 300, but we wouldn't be able to realise the 300 for another 10 years, because watch my post on Facebook, not the one on Twitter, but the one on Facebook, and it explains this. We don't have the deep sea ports or the packaging and processing facilities in the UK. That is the Labour Party's fault, okay? That's the Common Fisheries fault. We are where we are today. We do not have the capacity to hoover up all those fish right now, of which, by the way, we import them. So our fish and chips on a Friday night, that's probably from a Danish or a Dutch or an Icelandic boat, okay? Your hake and chips, your cod and chips, that is an import. You're going to be paying an import tariff on that. We are not set up right now, because fishing is not just about catching the fish next to you. It's how deep do your nets go? Do your nets go along the bottom? Are you catching cod and sole in the channel? Are you catching scallops in French waters, because we want access to pick up the scallops? What about the shellfish in the channel? We've got pelagic fleets in in the Atlantic. Up in Iceland, we got more cod. So actually, we don't want tariffs. We don't want to pay more. What we want to do is glide path it down to a point where we are looking at re-establishing our ownership of our water and licensing out the fishing. So we're still not catching it, but we are charging them for catching it. That is our end game. Our end game is not to catch it ourselves. Our end game is to charge. Now, Billy Piper's Teeth has made that point. And Billy Piper's Teeth and I are completely aligned on this. Charge them for being in our water. We haven't got the capacity to pick up the fish. We just haven't got it or land them. Plus, the biggest super trawlers are UK registered companies. We can't do anything about them. They're Dutch, but we can't do anything about them.
Can I just express my sympathies to Loudmouth for having their fourth account officially permanently suspended from Twitter? I am living proof that there is life beyond Twitter, Loudmouth. So do not despair. Yeah, Rebecca, there was a couple of other quick things as well that I think the points that you made were really interesting. For example, the fact that a considerable percentage of the British fishing quota is owned. It's got overseas ownership, isn't it? So in a way, we're arguing to increase the quota that goes to a foreign owner. If not, is that right?
Yeah. So what the activist would have you think is they're all little 10-meter vessels, in Cornwall. They're not. These are super trawlers. They just go in and hoover up a whole year's quota in one night. I mean, these are mega trawlers. These are the people who bought the fishing quotas off other smaller vessels and wiped them out of the market. Now, under the Common Fisheries Policy, they're allowed to register that boat in Britain as a company. The fishing quota is the business. So the vessel is registered in Rotterdam or wherever.
Yeah.
It is the Dutch that are the problem here, and the Spanish. And so they're registered, they're owned by Dutch owners, and they're registered as UK businesses. So they pay UK tax, by the way, and they are quotas that they were given under the CFP. Actually, none of that is illegal. And despite what certain MEPs are telling people on Twitter and Facebook, there is no way that is going to change for that particular company after Brexit. Governments cannot have any powers to go in and change the ownership of an existing company. They can apply laws and create laws for future businesses, but no, they can't insist that fishing boats are majority owned by UK nationals. They can't do that. That's just not a provision in law. And if you listen to particular MEPs, they don't understand the law. They don't know. They're just saying things that trigger the activists. And oh God, yeah, we love you. You're the god of cod, sort of thing. And they're wrong. They're just wrong.
I saw some video footage of one of these super trawlers like hoovering up the fish, and it looked grotesque to me. As you say, that's so far removed from what a lot of people think the industry is about that you couldn't be further away, actually. But the amount of fish that they can hoover up, I actually think, never mind the economics, I think it's broadly speaking immoral, but that's just me imposing my view on it. But when you see it, it's kind of unbelievable. I wonder if anybody on the stream has seen these images of these super trawler hoover ships, but they're bloody awful looking to me.
I mean, all I actually said in my tweet, which turned out to be catastrophically unpleasant, the comments I was getting, was that we need to distinguish between what the smaller vessels, the artisan fishermen, the cod, scallop, shellfish fishermen, from the super trawlers. I mean, honestly, you thought I called out to murder somebody's mother for suggesting That
Yeah.
people who actually, I'm afraid, Brexit Party MEPs who have huge vested interests, by the way, and are extremely wealthy and are going to make money out of this, whichever way it cuts. These people are screaming because you're saying, hang on a minute, Macron is in a pincer movement because his problems are as big as ours with the Dutch, because the Dutch own French companies as well, and they're hoovering up their quotas. So all we're left with in the Channel is artisan fishermen, guys struggling to make a living. And so the politicians jump on their coattails and say, oh, look at them, aren't they poor? When in fact, you're talking about rich list individuals owning the Lowestoft, the Peterhead, the Scottish lot. They're all big money individuals. Don't feel sorry for them. Look at the artisan and look at what Macron's saying. It's really worth listening because he's in a pincer movement as well. And if he protects hard and sole fishermen in the Channel, we'll all do well out of it.
So what's your prediction then? Do you think that between now and January 1st, there'll be some coming together around these issues, or do you think we could potentially crash out, so over the cliff, etc.?
I honestly can't see us crashing out. I just can't. I can see worst case scenario, not a full deal. I think they may have run out of time for the legal text, but I can see a memorandum of understanding on the text for some things. I can see that there be a punitive aspect. I can see that we'll compromise on a tribunal for disputes. That's an obvious compromise. And I think the glide path, the taper down to the point where we do retain all of our quotas on our side of the Channel, I think that will have to be extended by 2 years, 3 years, maybe even. We weren't that far apart, you know. They wanted 10, we've offered 3. There's a compromise to be made there in the middle. Yeah. And as they taper down their quota, obviously we're taking money for licenses. So we're saying, yes, Mr. Frenchman, you may come into our waters, but you have to have a license to do so and pay for it. Yeah, it's not hard.
Well, we'll watch the space, Rebecca. Undoubtedly, we go from day to day on this one. And I think my own view is I think it's extraordinarily unlikely that there will be a no deal January. But the consequences for both parties are massive. The only thing that annoys me is the EU are so predictable in this one, aren't they? They are absolutely running it up to TikTok, 1 minute to midnight. And it just annoys me because they could save us a lot of grief and themselves a lot of grief. German car manufacturers a lot of grief, and French wine producers a lot of grief, and Spanish fruit growers a lot of grief, if they just bloody well were sensible. But it's not a sensible organization. We're better off out of it. I think we all can agree on that one, folks.
They wouldn't let us negotiate with the individual states is because they knew damn well if they let Boris speak to Angela Merkel or Macron or any of them actually, that they would have all said, you know what, we agree with you, but we're going to have to toe the party line here. So it's the behemoth of the institution that is getting in the way. Regrettably, trust is falling away, and we have to have a working relationship with them in the future. So it's like my divorce analogy. We've got children, we need to get on. So, once you've sorted out your spousal maintenance order, I'm not paying you for life, but I'll pay you for a year to get yourself back on your feet. That kind of compromise has to work for the greater good. So, divorces are acrimonious. I mean, if anybody thought this wasn't going to happen, hey, you know what? You don't really know the EU. And for anybody who says we didn't vote for a deal, actually, I'm afraid last year's general election has been a supervening issue in all of this. We did vote for a deal because we vote knowing that the withdrawal deal was coming in, and the political declaration made it very clear that we were going to be negotiating a deal. So we actually did vote to have a deal.
Okay. Well, moving on. He says, Rebecca, this story really caught my eye. I think it was yesterday or today. Did you see this one? Leaked files expose mass infiltration of UK firms by the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, including AstraZeneca, all these scratchy British institutions in many regards, Rolls-Royce, HSBC, Jaguar, Land Rover. And it goes on to say, Rebecca, leading members of the Chinese Communist Party are working in British consulates, unis, and apparently with significant influence. And then the bit I thought was laughable at the end of this is from the Daily Mail. So, spoiler alert. Some members who swear oath to guard party secrets, be loyal to the party, work hard, fight for communism throughout my life, and never betray the party, are understood to have jobs in British consulates. Well, heads up, Daily Mail. They're all in that category. There's none of them have got loyalty to, and for understandable reasons, they're not allowed to have loyalty to nation states. But yeah, so the world seems to have woken up and suddenly thought, gosh, there's I think the number is 1.9 million basically communists have infiltrated across the West. That's just some UK. They're in the US. They're everywhere. They're across the West, and this brings us to the they're not there for our good, I can assure you. They're definitely not. But yeah, this sort of Chinese communist infiltration seems to have happened silently without much fuss. And if you go back over the last year, or slightly maybe beyond that, China has been the dog that didn't bark in the middle of the night in so many ways, Rebecca, from the Sherlock Holmes story. We've not heard very much about China because people are too busy arguing with each other about, your COVID response this, your COVID response that, your economy response that, and the other. But actually, in the meanwhile, China just continues to grow. I saw this. Chinese economy bounces back in Q3, 4.9% growth, the only economy in the world doing well. Isn't that a surprise?
No. I mean, sometimes I just wish they'd watch my Twitter, because back in January, I did a tweet because I picked up an article from The Age in Melbourne, The Age newspaper, which is a broadsheet. And in it, they were saying the Australians were bemoaning the fact that they couldn't get reagents for the PCR tests. And one of their reporters had done a sort of investigative job on it. And what they discovered is, because there are a lot of expatriate Chinese living in Australia, because of the trade agreements that go across, they have this reciprocity on visas, but it all goes one way and not the other, a bit like us in Eastern Europe. And what they discovered was that not people infiltrating, actually, not official infiltration, citizens just normal citizens, Joe Blogs, in Victoria were contacted by local party agents. Yeah. Saying, go onto Amazon, order this reagent, order this number of masks, order this number of things from this company. Here's the link, or else we know where your mum lives.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
I don't know if people recall when the pandemic hit, we couldn't test, not because our government's incompetent, but because we couldn't actually buy reagents. Nobody could, because China had bought the whole lot up through its citizen soldiers. Not that they're doing it willingly. These guys have left China for a good reason. They're doing it because we're going to go and sort your mother out. Put them in
that absolutely is the point that people have to understand. What Rebecca said, I don't mean to disparage Chinese people living in the West, but the reality is that they will have family members back in China, and I'm afraid the Chinese Communist Party controls it rather like Stalin controlled the Soviet Union with an iron fist. So you don't have a choice, Rebecca. You do what you're told. If if you want to see, your family members still,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's how it works. But I mean, you were saying that was in January, but in January, Rebecca, we also saw this. I want your view on this.
Oh yeah.
A man lies dead in the street. The image that captures the Wuhan coronavirus crisis. Now, I'm not sure if that image was entered for an Oscar because the lighting was pretty good in it. It looked almost credible. And we've seen other images of people just falling over in the streets of Wuhan. Remember?
There was one at the tube station, wasn't there? That was quite a famous one. Yeah, the guy just suddenly keels over, and that's it. He's done.
Yeah. But isn't it strange, Rebecca, that we saw that just in that moment in time back in January, February, which added to the sort of global fear, stress, anxiety, and response. But then we never saw any evidence of these things happening in our countries, which begs the question: just what was going on in China back in January?
Well, the Washington Post did a fantastic expose on this, and it is actually, this is so on point. And I did a tweet on this months ago now, but what this Washington Post journalist did was he tracked what he suspected were bot accounts from China. Mm-hmm. And he noticed that bot accounts were tagging on Twitter images like that, like people dropping over and what have you. And then the response of Italy, which was quite a high panic response, and all those images from ICUs in Italy and people lining in corridors dying, and all the dire images. They were trolling our politicians and our media because Twitter is their forum, really. And they were trolling on, but I'm talking on billions of tweets scale.
Yeah, massive scale. Yeah.
A massive effort to sow panic, and of course, most liberal democracies, and I do count us as one. Mm-hmm. You have the pillars, don't you? And you'll have a philosophical pillar, political philosophy pillar. You also have an economic pillar. So, and sometimes they don't meet, and economies just keep running, even though you'll fall out with them over political ideology. But China, they're completely intrinsically entwined.
Oh, they're linked. Mm-hmm.
And it's about controlling data. It's controlling newsfeed. It's controlling it not only by suppressing, but also what they advance. So trolling and repeating these scary videos to inspire a sense of panic and something must be done. But I think if you take it one step further in your thinking and you say, well, that undermines democracy, because look at our country. Look at what's happened to us. We have a brand new government is on its knees. Donald Trump, I'm convinced, lost that election because of coronavirus. Mm-hmm. What is going to happen to Macron? Merkel's leaving. Democracy is under threat because the seeds of dissent and discord have been sown 12 months ago.
Well, actually, Well, Rebecca, but I mean, I saw this as well. This is again from another periodical, which says that SARS-CoV-2 was likely circulating in China as early as mid-October 2019. So, and this was American researchers have believe that is likely the case. And I've seen that repeated elsewhere as well. And arguably even maybe a month before that again. So what do we make of the fact that the Chinese government and everything, the Chinese government know what's happening in China, like you say, they know, if a grasshopper jumps, they know about it. So are we led to believe that for those months of October and November, they didn't really know what was going on, and then only December they got an inkling, but they weren't sure? Do you believe that, or do you believe that they knew they were more aware of what was happening? What do you think?
It's complete piffle, because in November, and I've said this so many times, in November, it was reported by Dr. Wian Leng in the South China Post. He whistle blew to the Hong Kong press, the South China Post. That's not a Chinese newspaper, it's a Hong Kong newspaper. And he was describing this atypical pneumonia. And what makes SARS-CoV-2 atypical is how the X-ray presents itself, because it doesn't look like a classic pneumonia where you get consolidation in the lungs. In COVID-2, you get this massive whiteout across the lungs. And so they knew they were dealing with an atypical pneumonia. I did a poll on this on Facebook, and I said, do you think you've had it? And when do you think you had it? Loads and loads and loads of people came back, and they were like, well before December. They were saying, oh, I went skiing, I was from Italy. But they isolated in Italy a boy only the other day who had it in the beginning of November. He was the first symptomatic. Now, remember, everybody says there's asymptomatic spread. The amount of it is not known. But if a boy is showing a symptomatic spread, remember, best estimate, say 80% asymptomatic spread. How long has this been out there? How many doctors were just treating the patients and thinking, oh, that's a bit odd. Gosh, what's happening with that lung? And didn't really think, hang on a minute, I'll just do a viral titer, because you don't normally check your patients for viruses when they turn up unable to breathe. You assume they've got pneumonia or they've got a pulmonary embolism or a heart attack. You don't reach for your PCR tests normally. So the doctor who did eventually report it, we know what happened to him, right? Now, a really interesting fact, if you take the Chinese case, which is December, if you believe them, which I don't, but if you believe them, if you take that as the starting point, this is a staggeringly frightening fact. 95% of the transmission could have been stopped in the space of 3 weeks. Now, that's a position of December. We're looking at a doctor reporting it in November. Well, that's another 4 weeks. So this could have been on the scale of MERS or even SARS-CoV-1, which was a few thousand people. But China was signing off a trade deal with the US at the time, and that is not an insignificant coincidence. They wanted to suppress this virus while they signed off that free trade agreement.
So is that why you think that they did it? Because as you say, the emergence of COVID in the early of this year, it has essentially, President Trump was going to be re-elected, no doubt about it. But the economic and the health consequences and all of that, it's changed politics around the world, as you say, Rebecca. It's destabilized actually politics around the world, and that concerns me deeply. And I've talked about this so much because I think the Chinese Communist Party influence can be found in an area very much central to this, which is the World Health Organization. Now, Dr. Tedros, who currently, I believe, I did see a story in the press today that I see he may be taken up under war crimes back in downtown Ethiopia in his previous incarnation as part of that tyranny. But anyway, it was the Chinese Communist Party that got him into the position as in the World Health Organization. And the WHO, no matter how you look on it, has been central to how Western governments in particular have responded. So again, if you were a bit sort of cynical, you'd start to see the tendrils of the Chinese Communist Party in all kinds of areas, which worries and has worried me all the way through this. I mean, do you think it's a concern, their links into the WHO, for example?
Well, I take it one step further back. Now, I live very near to one of our finest public schools, which is Winchester College. It is full of Chinese. So I would even go back. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have Chinese people here, but I'm saying that these things start very silently, and there's a massive, massive, massive push from both China and Russia to start educating them in the Western system. So there are so many Chinese kids at Winchester College that they felt it was better for their settling in and what have you to have exclusive Chinese houses for them, so that they weren't sort of mixing with the white boys. Because when you count the Chinese and the Russians, actually the local lads are in a minority. So although the Russians do integrate better, but then they go into universities, inevitably Oxbridge, inevitably Cambridge, by the way. They fill the departments at Cambridge. And that's how they infiltrate. They get into the civil service. They have their visas to stay. They get a job. They're in the civil service. They're dictating policy. Now, that's brilliant for the individual, but you have to ask, where does it all start? And, you know, the WHO, oh, come on, you know, another corrupt UN body. I mean, show me one. Trump was right. Just get rid of the UN. It's just a talking shop. And they're just scratching each other's backs. You know, Saudi Arabia chairing the human rights. Come on, hello. You know,
The United Nations is absolutely a global corruptocracy. But the WHO, as I say, you do, the Chinese tendrils are in there. Academia is a good example, though, Rebecca, because even in my major university that I went to a million years ago, the university authorities were so keen to get their fee-paying Chinese students back. The minute we came out of the first lockdown, they were chartering flights for them to fly them back here because of the revenue sources. And yet, again, you've got to ask questions about that as well. So I fear that China has people talk about Russia, you know, Russia this, Russia that. Russia's not is not a global threat on anything like the scale of China. But the genius of China is nobody talks about it. But maybe that's not surprising if they do have so many influential people in so many areas. Maybe there's a reason that it takes people like you and me to come on and actually have an open conversation about, you know, the potential threats this has to our democracy. Because with the best will in the world, you know, China can look after itself. I want our countries and fellow democracies to be able to prosper. We don't need to be enthralled to the Chinese Communist Party.
But I think this is more sinister than that, David. I'm, you know, I really, you must stop me if I'm beginning to sound like a conspiracy theorist. But just what I think is happening here is they've, you know, put aside whether it was deliberate or not, okay? Because I don't know. Mind open. Let's just say we don't care whether it's deliberate or not. Has China taken advantage of it? Absolutely, they have. Because while Western democracies are struggling with containment, with their public messaging, all of them are getting it wrong. Democracy's under threat. Please tell me why China needs a military base in the Horn of Africa. Please tell me why. Why have they managed to build a military naval base in Djibouti, which, by the way, guards the Gulf, the Red Sea, up to the Suez Canal? Now, those who follow me on Twitter will know I have done tweet after tweet on, you know, if you don't watch what's going on with China, the One Belt, One Road initiative is spreading across the globe, and it's not just infrastructure. It's not just ports in Greece. Railways in Italy, roads in Iran, roads in Turkey. They've created the old Silk Route right across Middle East and poor Middle East countries, They've slashed into the mining in Central Africa. That's commercial.
Yeah.
Now it's military. They've got Ethiopia in their hands. They've got Somalia. They've got, this critical port of Djibouti. I can't tell you how important and strategic that is. And it happened like 3 months ago. They commissioned it. It's now got Chinese warships in there. What the hell are we thinking? What the hell?
Yeah. Did you see the story the other day in the news about the Chinese were apparently experimenting to create like super soldiers? They were experimenting in, I don't know what kind of what tablets or what they were putting into these guys, but it was to make their military people stronger, more powerful, and potentially therefore more of a threat than their opposition. Something out of a sci-fi movie, actually, but it's real. This is China. This is the same China which has been very aggressive, as you know, with India, which has been very aggressive in the South Seas. Like there's a lot of stuff which I think we in the West have been kind of ignorant about. People closer to the region.
We are snoozing.
Yeah.
I would love to get, somebody who is a fierce advocate against Islamophobia. I'd really like to engage with a Muslim activist, and I would like to say to them, you live in Britain. Why aren't you speaking out against what China's doing to the Uyghur Muslims? Why aren't you dealing with the re-education camps? They reckon there are 1 million working age men imprisoned in those camps, re-education camps. This is not me thinking there might be a camp, right? They exist. Nobody.
Oh no, they do. Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything about it. Why not? Why are we not confronting the truth and just saying, hang on a minute, get your Navy vessels out of Djibouti?
Well, I think one of the reasons is that the Chinese have, they've got a lot of investments in big media houses around the world. So there's lots of reasons for certain organizations to stay quiet about it. But as you say, Rebecca, this is a real and present threat. It's so real that you couldn't. It's not a conspiracy theory in any regard to say it. That the worrying thing is the silence on the subject, the fact that nobody really does talk about it at all. And that's why I wanted us to talk about it, folks, because this is the existential crisis. It's not Islam. It's not even COVID. It's not COVID. It's not the government's ham-fisted responses to this, that, and the other. It's this global predator, which I saw, Rebecca. I'm sure you saw in Time magazine they made Joe Biden and Kamala Harris the person of the year. And the best spoof I saw on that was someone had inserted Xi Jinping between the two of them. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of it. And the world needs to waken up, because if Biden, and it looks likely he will get into the White House, much as I regret it, he's instantly he will re-embrace the policies of Obama and indeed those before him, who sucked up to the Chinese Communist Party. And it won't end well.
No, but you know what? I'm not sure if Trump did this on purpose. And this is just me speculating now, okay? I don't have any evidence to suggest this, but I'm just thinking, given what China's doing on the Horn of Africa, what it's doing across Africa, the most strategic now allies are Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Yeah.
We are going to become increasingly reliant on Saudi Arabia and Israel to sort the Chinese out on the Horn of Africa and to sort out that massive Silk Road infrastructure that exists between effectively Iran or even Syria
and
across back to China. So, Saudi is becoming more and more moderate as, the sheikhs get younger and younger. Things are improving very slowly. And the Abraham Accords that Donald Trump, in my view, deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for what he did just before he left office. An amazing accord has been reached between Israel and the Saudis. They no longer hate each other. They are the gatekeepers geographically to the Suez Canal. They protect us.
Yeah, but we certainly need strategic allies against the Chinese. And I mean, the other one I would also say is India as well. I think India is a powerful, and again, Donald Trump cultivated good relationships with Modi for that very similar reason as well.
And Pakistan, to be fair, Pakistan have a lot to fear. And again, there is a reasonably liberal ruler. Fortunately, they're all now looking at Iran and saying, you are becoming a bit of a pariah and we've had enough of you. So Qatar's turned against Iran. All the Emirates have always been against them. Saudis increasingly hostile towards Iran. So, Russia has got the economy of Italy. Forget it. It's not the big player. I think Saudi, Israel against.
Did you see the story emerged the other day about an American congressman? I see we've got one of my longtime supporters here, the city troll, a proper troll, the only decent troll I know actually, who's a good guy. And I think I'm right in saying an American congressman was found to have been compromised by a Chinese young lady called Fang Fang, I think was her name. Did you see that one, Rebecca? And it's one of these Democrat clowns who somebody will tell me who he is in a minute. He was found to have let this young Chinese lady into his more immediate vicinity, let's say. And of course, she was then leaking everything back to China. And in a way, it's kind of funny because of course that's always gone on. But I believe that the depth of it, it's the depth of it, Rebecca. Sowell, that's his name. Congressman Sowell, that's him. Yeah. But he's just symptomatic. There's loads like that, and right.
Ozzy, I have been watching you, Ozzy. You've made some absolutely brilliant points tonight. And I just want to pull up this one because Turkey is the overland transit from the Middle East across to Europe. And China has put in massive infrastructure in Turkey, roads, rails, and some of the ports on the Mediterranean side. This is really, really dangerous stuff. Okay, so Turkey is a pariah state. Turkey is also in the customs union with the EU. So that is China's entry point on the Belt and Road Initiative, the One Belt, One Road, as they call it. So this is a really important point, is that Turkey is reliant on Chinese money, as in fact many governments are reliant, because they've over-globalized, over-capitalized, and actually they haven't been able to do it because they're corrupt mainly. Just look at Africa for that. And so Turkey is a really, really weak point, Ozzy, and that's an absolutely critical point to make. But the road route from Iran through Syria into Turkey is something we should all be very, very worried about, because Erdogan, it will take nothing for him to just have a hissy fit, open those borders. He's been paid billions to police. And he'll just throw a hissy fit and open the borders. And, it really does matter, because those are big distribution networks that are coming across. China's ambitions are big. They are multi-generational. They don't rely on a political cycle of 4 years or 5 years.
They don't need to. No, they don't.
He's emperor now. He can't be dethroned.
And Rebecca, that is exactly the point. They don't have to think. The weakness of possibly of all our democracies is these relatively short electoral cycles. When you're a tyrant You don't have to worry about stuff like that. And the Chinese Communist Party, I mean, it's got a clear objective to become the global economic superpower, the global economic military power. It's got all very clear in what it wants to do after the century of humiliation it had from 1850 to 19. So it's very clear what they're doing. And I think, if we do nothing else, Rebecca, we raise the flag, we raise the topic, and hopefully people on the stream, I can tell you guys are pretty much clued up on this, but you should talk to others about it as well, because sometimes we fight enemies that aren't really enemies, and we miss the main. It's a puppet master you worry about, not the puppets. Puppets don't matter so much. And
forget where this virus came from. You can say what you like about this expert, that expert, vaccines, PCR tests. Just remember where it came from. And let's not shoot each other down. Let's not shoot each other down over whether it's a deal or no deal Brexit. This shit in China is so much bigger. That has more of an impact on us than, are you going to have a tariff on your barley or, your porridge in the morning? At the end of the day, we mustn't fight each other. We've got to have common cause.
No, that's right. And unfortunately, a tyranny like China is very good at the divide and conquer game. And they've done a brilliant job this year, Rebecca. And I think there are not many streams on social media that actually we've spent just over half an hour discussing it. There's so many dimensions to this. I mean, you could talk about Hong Kong, what's happening in Hong Kong. We could talk about, as you mentioned, Africa, and you could go into detail and all of that. There's so much to this. But honestly, I'm really pleased we've taken the time, and we've actually, brought up the Chinese. I'm sorry, reading your.
It does put into context the lefty loonies and the Remainer Tories getting their knickers in a complete twist over Boris Johnson breaking international law. I mean, for God's sake, what he said was, we're going to put in domestic legislation to stop you lot imposing a backstop on Ireland because we're not having a border on the Irish Sea. So we're going to legislate in our parliament to prevent you doing that. We only did that in response to a threat. So they're getting their knickers in a twist over that. The House of Lords ties itself in knots over Zoom calls, disrupts everything. It's just all nasty and horrible. I mean, can we talk about what breaking international law really is? And putting bases on other continents, I think is a pretty big one. It's a really good big one.
Yeah. Oh, but the other thing is, one of the good things that I think has happened, we'll finish in this, but I was very concerned about the fact that, with Theresa May, we seem to be pretty much steaming full steam ahead with Huawei and the integration of that into our 5G networks and 6G in the future and whatnot. And to be fair, that does seem to have been stopped or at least paused. And it absolutely needed to be, Rebecca, because regardless of what China says, it comes back to what, that Huawei doesn't do anything that the China Communist Party doesn't approve of. It's ears. It's listening devices, and we, as no Western nation, should be reliant on them, in my view.
No, but I mean, what's interesting, if you think about it, is one of the first things she did as PM was she removed them from the nuclear power contracts, as though, and why didn't she think of Huawei at the same time? Because in many ways, nuclear power isn't in my front room, but Huawei is, and so good political actions, and yes, good. We've stamped it all down. So I'm glad. Also, another positive that comes out of this is that we are looking at the Hong Kong Chinese. What China breaking international law again is doing there. It's an absolute outrage what Carrie Lam is doing. These are crimes against humanity.
Oh, yeah.
Outright breaking international treaty with us over this dual system in Hong Kong. Yeah, free ports. Let's bring them in. You know, Southampton, Cowes, Belfast, free ports. Bring the Hong Kong Chinese over. Absolutely bring them over. We need to protect them, I think.
Yeah, no. Well, as I said, we could have a separate show just on Hong Kong. There's so much to talk about as to what's going on. And again, Rebecca, pretty much it hasn't been reported much in the last 9 months. Funnily enough, since the emergence of COVID, all those protests that we saw in the streets of Hong Kong, which were making international headlines, which wasn't helpful to the Chinese Communist Party. Well, they've gone. And as you said, what's been going on since then has been a disgrace. But anyway, look, folks, we have, as always, gone over our time. But so who's counting? Well, the Chinese Communist Party. So hello, if you're listening to me, my good pals in Beijing. And what I want to do is just wrap things up by, first of all, thanking you, Rebecca, as always, for coming on the stream. It's so lovely to see you. And thanks for being part of our Monday night. Thanks all of you.
Yeah, it's always so nice to see the comments, because this is the kind of criticism and discussion we all need in life, not nasty, vindictive, personal stuff. It's just pointless.
Yeah. There's no place for that. No place for that in any of my streams. No. So thank you, folks. Actually, as Rebecca said, I mean, and I've been saying this to you as long as I've been doing these things. Part of the fun in doing this is, and the enjoyment and the interest is to read what you say and to hear your comments as well. And Harry, thank you very much for the kind words. We want to have, as I keep saying, reasoned, sensible debate. Doesn't mean we always agree, by no means, but we can do it in a sensible way, folks. And you all do that. And you, as I say, you do make this stream for me. So as I said, so thanks to you, thanks to Rebecca. We will be back, hopefully, Rebecca, next Monday, Christmas special. I think we need to be doing. So you need to start planning your Christmas outfit. I did send you a suggestion the other day, but notwithstanding that, yeah. So as I say, folks, we will hopefully be back. I hope to have I'll be doing another live stream, I think on Wednesday. Somebody's asking me, so I'll be doing one then. And in the meantime, please follow Rebecca on her Twitter and her Facebook. And, Rebecca is a very courageous lady who, principle matters to me more than anything else. I've always said what I think, and I believe it. I mean, actually, I put this hashtag, my aim is true. Elvis Costello reference, admittedly, but it's because I always believe what I say. I could be wrong, but I believe it. And it's important that, voices like Rebecca's are given space to amplify their arguments, which is very difficult, Rebecca, in a little echo chamber of a 240 character tweet or even a Facebook post. It's hard. It's better to take space and to talk about things, because I reckon most people are reasonable people.
Of course,
at least most.
I mean, come on Twitter, unfortunately, some commentators don't stick to the 260 characters, and they just have tweet after tweet after tweet, a string of 20 of them. I just do a daily update on them. So I'll go 10 today or 15 today. That and see more at the bottom of a Facebook post. No, thank you. I don't want to read another page of this, but please come over to my Facebook page, because I really need your help. Please come over. Yeah. Come over. It's open. No blocks. Never, ever block anybody, despite the most vile comments I get. I like to know where the nutters are in my life. So just come over and join in. I mean, you don't have to agree. Please don't agree, but try and keep the nastiness down for me, because it is actually emotionally quite wearing.
So absolutely. So as I said, so do make sure you support Rebecca on her Facebook. You know where I am. I'm in a million places. And I appreciate your support to me as well. And listen, we will leave you now, but as I said, be back next week in festive gear, and we shall see you all then for the festivities of what will be the Christmas week. So that's it from me. Good night.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye-bye.